Greetings, fellow scribes! Welcome back to the archive. This week, I continue my series talking about the archetypes of Shadowrun by talking about probably my favorite archetype, the Rigger. Whether they be your wheelman or the person controlling a flight of drones to chase your enemies down, the Rigger is pretty much the linchpin of any team. Because they're the ones who get you into the site and get you out of the site. Without them, what are you gonna do? Take the bus? So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we talk about the ultimate wheelmen. So first thing I have to address when talking about riggers is the major downside. Generally speaking, with the sole exception of 4th edition, riggers get their book fairly late in the edition cycle. I mean, we got Rigger 5 just about a year and a half out from when 6th edition was announced. Rigger 4 was a joke PDF done in 4th edition, literally as their April Fools, right before they were going to release 5th edition. Because there's always been this statement that when the Rigger book comes out, that's the end of the edition. And it's been unfortunately kind of true. Rigger Black Book came out just before 2nd edition. The Rigger 2 book came out just before 3rd edition. While Rigger 3 did come out earlier in the edition, Rigger 3 Revised came out much later, just before 4th edition. 4th edition was the oddball in that they put riggers in pretty much the first book, Arsenal. Because Arsenal was about customizing weapons and vehicles. And that ultimately is the bread and butter of a rigger. Customizing. When you play a rigger, you don't want to pull stock stuff off the shelf, because that vehicle you drive, that is not just a tool, that is an extension of yourself. I tend to consider the first thing a rigger should always do is they should have a primary vehicle. Like, literally, the first thing you do when you are building your rigger is you decide what is going to be your main vehicle. Earlier editions, in fact, most editions, the GMC Bulldog Step Van has been the most common rigger vehicle. I've never been a fan of it myself. It looks cool, it's just everyone does it. In 5th edition, my preferred was the GMC Odyssey, which was a panel van. In 2nd edition, I used my personal favorite, the Eurovan. They were actually a fairly common van, so they're easy to just blend in. Vans tend to be the preferred team vehicle just because they kind of just blend in. And oh yeah, you've got plenty of room to do modifications, whether it be using cargo factor, body, or the various methods used in later editions. like the ridiculously huge number of modification slots you have in 5th edition, where you've got your engine, your powertrain, your weapon systems, body, everything has a huge amount of slots available to use. The one thing I missed from 3rd edition was that you could actually design a vehicle and build it from the ground up. That was actually really cool bit of Rigor 3, was that it actually had full-on design rules, and no other edition has done that. But all that said, let's talk about how you build your rigger beyond their vehicle. First off, you're going to need to decide if you're going to use drones. Frankly, if you want to be involved with the team in the run itself, you want drones. So you're probably going to put a drone rack on your vehicle. Again, another great reason to use a van, because you can have the drone inside the van, and the drone rack can deploy the drone from inside the van. Having assortments of drones like fly spies or Dobermans or steel lynxes or any sort of drones like that, those are going to be important. So you're going to want to make sure when you build your vehicle, when you're modding your vehicle, that it can carry the drone racks you need. You also want to make sure it can carry your team. Of course, from there, you're going to want to do stuff to your vehicle. You're going to want to soup it up, make it as fast as you can. Throw stuff on it like chameleon coating so you can change its color scheme on the fly. Morphable license plates and fake transponders so you can change your identity as you're driving. Get outside security. Throw a switch. Your black van is now red. Its Seattle plates are now Texas plates. That sort of thing. But you need to make sure you set all that up as you're doing your vehicle, because your vehicle is how your team gets away from and occasionally to the site, because you are their exfiltration option. Your drones are there to provide heavy fire support that a mortal being can't, or to provide covert, recon inside the job site. The MCT Fly Spy is my favorite for that. It looks like a fly. It's as big as a house fly. You can just land it on someone's shoulder and just follow them in. And no one will notice. Land it on a politician's head. He might not even be aware of it. But once you've got your vehicle planned, once you've figured out what you're doing there, you're going to look at your other options. First off, you're going to need a vehicle control rig in 2nd and 3rd edition, a control rig in 4th and 5th. Noting that the control rig in 5th is more like the old VCR, the old vehicle control rig, than the control rig from 4th. The control rig from 4th was just a single half-essence thing while the VCR was it used as much essence as wired reflexes, and the control rig in 5th uses a comparable amount of essence. Not quite as much, but a good bit. You might want to invest in making that alphaware if you can afford it. You're also going to want skills. Now, the primary skills for a rigger are going to be driving for the appropriate vehicle. So you're going to, if you have a fly spy, you're going to want the exotic vehicle control skill for when you're jumped into it. If you're running a rotodrone, you're gonna want aircraft with a emphasis or specialty in helicopters or rotorcraft. You're gonna want a skill for your ground vehicles. So, ground vehicle is pretty much a must-have. Because your big fire support drones, like the Steel Lynx and similar, they are ground vehicles. They don't walk. And then from there, you're going to want appropriate engineering skills. Frankly, I just recommend taking the engineering group. Didn't put your skills at a level where you're getting a group free. Just spend the karma for it. 15 points to get it at 2 is going to get you at least viable starting off in 5th edition. And probably about the same in 4th edition. But yeah, you're going to want to buy the skill group, because it's just too useful, because you're probably going to use everything in the engineering skill group. And it's just going to be cheaper for you in the long run. That said, that's how I approach it. Attributes. Your main attributes are going to be reaction, because that's what you use for driving vehicles. Intuition, because that's for initiative. And logic, because most of the engineering skills, most of your build and repair skills in what would be the older editions, like 2nd and 3rd, are based off of logic or intellect, as it was in the older editions. And everything else is kind of secondary. You don't need high agility, because you're generally not going to be out engaging people in the flesh. You might want a high body and high willpower just to deal with dump shock, but that's kind of not exactly necessary, as I said. Strength, you're not really going to be lifting stuff much. You've got equipment in your garage for that, so you are not really going to be doing much with the way of strength. Charisma, well, you can always be the gruff auto mechanic. You can also be the smiling person who will cheerfully help fix things for people. That's up to you. But charisma's kind of charisma, body, and willpower are kind of in their own special group, in that They're nice to have, but not necessary. Your absolute 3 most important attributes as a rigger are reaction, intuition, and logic. It's just, trust me on this. You're going to use those more than anything else. Now, caveat is, in 4th edition, riggers and deckers were so close, it was easy to build a rigging decker or a decking rigger. But again, that's kind of a little addition quirk. There was another quirk in 4th edition, however. There was a option for technomancers. It was called the Dronomancer. And it was basically a technomancer option that lets you jack into vehicles as if you had a control rig, and lets you control vehicle drones, basically, and even let you have specific sprites that you could summon that could control drones for you, like they were the command program. Because here's where we get into the edition difference. In first, second, third edition, you had the rigger control console. In 4th edition, you had the command program. And in 5th edition, you had the command console. And the purpose of all of these was the same. These let you remotely control drones. If you were using 4th edition, you use the command program and your comlink. And you basically get an AR control setup that you're able to use to control the drone like it was a remote control car. A 2nd, 3rd edition, and 5th edition command console lets you do crazy things, like actually set your drones up to work in a formation, or just, coordinate their movements, tell them all to follow one drone while you jump into that, and away you go. All sorts of stuff like that. They were basically the command program from 4th edition, just with hardware and dedicated dog brains for controlling drones. And if you're running drones, no matter what edition, you need that setup. You need whatever your edition's method to control drones is. But overall, that is pretty much a rigger. Those are the best ways to build a rigger, the things you have to think about, I should say. Generally speaking, a rigger is probably going to be priority A, will be either resources or skills. B will be either resources or skills. C will be attributes. And then the rest is up to you. That's the assuming you're going with a human rigger. So priority E is pretty much going to be magic. That's no doubt about that. You might end up bumping things around if you want to play something unusual, like, say, a troll rigger, which you have to be priority A or B in 5th edition to be a troll rigger. So it would be most likely priority A resources, priority B, troll, priority C, skills, priority D, attributes, because troll already has a fairly high body and strength, so you're just putting those remaining points, pumping them up into your reaction and intuition and logic. Sorry. But that's just one way you can look at that. There are always going to be different ways to do it, but you're definitely going to want resources fairly high, because the control rig, the command console, vehicles and drones, whatever modifications you put onto those, any vehicle weapons you put onto them, those are expensive. So with that, I have one more installment in the series. I've covered the 6 main concepts, the 6 main archetypes. Next week, I'm going to just talk about the whole concept behind the oddballs, the things that don't fit neatly in any of these boxes. So until then, I'd like you all to remember to have fun and keep gaming.